All right, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode here of BassandFurious TV. I want to thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate those of you that watch my videos and share my videos. It is greatly appreciated. So to dive right in, this is going to be a multi-part series that I plan on doing to talk to you guys about different baits that I fish and how I like to fish them. So hopefully you enjoy the series. If you do, I'm going to save them all in a playlist for you. That way you can go back and pull them up and see which ones that you want to take a look at, guys. But this is a multi-part series that I just want to basically, what I had to understand is that not everybody is a professional bass angler, right? Not everybody knows every technique and throws every technique out there. There's some people that just want to learn how to fish. They just want to buy a rod. They want to buy a reel. They just want to go fishing. Want to go catch a big fish. They don't want to see it swimming before it gets there. They just want to show up and catch a fish. So there's some techniques that you really need to know to kind of build your foundation as it comes to catching bass and being a bass fisherman. And a lot of it relates over to different types of fishing. And one of the things that I do tell people a lot of times is that I knew nothing about fishing at all when I first started. And I started around like 35, 36 years old. I knew nothing about fishing at all. So basically everything I learned from fishing just came from getting out and doing and talking to people and watching YouTube. One of the very first videos I watched was Andrew Flair showing you how to tune a bait caster. That was like one of the first videos I actually watched on fishing once I wanted to learn how to use bait casters, things like that. So you never really know. You never really know who you're reaching, who you're talking to, who may benefit from something that you say. So I encourage you all to obviously, share, make the videos, that type of thing, and also to put your own spin on it, make it your own. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about fishing some baits that I use for catching bass, and to try to keep them short and sweet, because it's going to be a series, so there'll be multiple parts to it where there's different baits and things like that. So first bait I want to start with is one of my absolute favorites that I fish this year round for bass. I fish it in any body of water, any type of water, any color, any clarity, anything like that, guys. This is one of the baits that if you know how to fish this bait, you'll be able to catch fish anywhere that you go, and that is a jig. Okay, so this is one of the very first baits that I'll go over, and I'm going to preface this whole video by saying that some of the pairings and things I do together may not match like people think they should match, but it's what I have available to me right now while I'm making a video. So first one to start out with is a jig. So you say, what is a jig? All right, first let's start with a jig. It's a piece of lead or tungsten head. Okay, this is the head of it, connected to a hook. And you say, what do you do with that? Okay, so I'm trying to catch bass. So obviously if you're going to catch a bass, largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, shoal bass, any of these bass, if you're trying to catch them, obviously, or any fish, you need a hook. Okay, so you have a hook, you have a piece of lead or the jig head, right? And this one has painted eyes. This one in particular is from Mega Custom Tackle. They have red eyes on it. Other ones have black eyes. Some of them have clear. All the components on a jig can be changed to match what you're doing. This is an orange one. I would fish this when I'm trying to imitate some type of crawl or something like that in the water. So a jig. What is a jig? Piece of lead or tungsten connected to a hook. That's a jig. It has an eye on the jig. Okay, so basically what you do to first start with a jig, if you get a jig, if you go in the store, say, hey, I want to fish some jigs, they show you the jig section. What do? You get the jig, you tie the eye, has an eye right there, you guys can see it. There's a hole right at the top. Might be on the front, might be on, might not be on the side, might be somewhere up here. You basically take it, you tie your line through here. Whatever knot you tie, that's what knot you tie. But you do need fishing line. Okay, guys, I'm making this as simple as I can. I want this to be a series that everyone can enjoy, and like I said, someone that may want to learn or get into fishing. Okay, tie the line to the jig. Okay, once you tie the line to the jig, now you have a jig, you have a hook. Okay, looks good. It's got a nice, this part on here, all this stuff right here is called a skirt. This is a jig skirt. This, like I said, can be changed to multiple colors so it can match different things. Why would you fish a jig? So you're fishing a jig because you're trying to imitate something that's in the water, and you want to get the bass to come eat that. That way you can then catch the bass. Or you want the bass to react to it. That way you can then catch the bass. So, for example, I want this to imitate a crawl. So I got an orange color. That's what crawls look like. Orange, red, black crawls, all kinds of colors. But this one in particular, I'm trying to imitate orange. I want it in the water. It's going to sit like this in the water. This is how it's going to sit. It'll sit just like this on the bottom. You tie it onto your favorite fishing pole, cast it out. It's going to fall down because there's lead on the top. It's going to fall down. It'll sit right in the water like that. Now I wanted to imitate a crawl. So how do crawls move? Usually they hop up, jump up, you know, they scurry real quick back, they jump up, they scurry real quick, or they move really slow and just barely crawl around. So I have this jig. If I'm fishing this jig and I'm trying to imitate a crawl, I'm going to then take the jig, tie it on, and cast it out. And then you're like, well, dude, you just got a hook there. I get it. Okay, so we're going to get there. All right. To make the jig complete, before you throw it in the water and start fishing, you're going to need what's called a trailer. And a trailer can be multiple different things. A jig and a trailer. Basically, these two go together, like peanut butter and jelly sandwich. They go together. The trailer is what gives the action of the legs for whatever you're trying to imitate. So if I'm trying to imitate a crawl, I got little orange legs here. I said they hop and then they scurry around. So this is what I'm trying to imitate. So I'm going to put it together. So basically you take your crawl, and again, you can literally go in the store and look for this, a crawl, jig. Buy these two things. Now, for me, for all of mine, I modify mine. So I'm going to just do it real quick. I'll show you guys. When you first saw it at first, had a bunch of different pieces on it. I don't like all that on my jigs. I want just legs kicking. That's all I want. So what I do, I take it, I put it right in the center. I feed it up over the hook. Again, be careful. You are dealing with a hook. If you're new to this, you do not want to put the hook to your finger. That'll end your fishing trip very quickly, okay? Now, this is more commonly what people refer to as a jig. This is when I'm fishing a jig. So basically, I have this skirt. When my bait comes down, the skirt flares out in the water. My legs are kicking or not kicking, depending on what I want back here. That all goes very deep. What you put on the back of your jig goes, there's so many different ways you can do that. But this is what I'm showing you guys right now. So this is an actual jig. Again, pitch it out, falls down like that. The legs are kicking. If I hop it up, the legs might kick as they go up. They come back down, kick, come back down, scurry around. If I just drag it, they just come along and drag it. Obviously, when it hits the ground, there's like a dust trail that comes off. When the head hits the ground, whoosh, scatters the dirt. That's usually what keys the fish in, that something's there. Now it's trying to get them to react to what I did, or they're just hungry and they want to eat it. You have to understand what you're fishing for, which is bass. And bass are predators. They like to come attack. They like to ambush. They like to hide behind and then sneak out and get something. So if it hits, they may not get it right when it hits. Sometimes they will. Sometimes they hit it on the way down as it's falling. But sometimes it has to come through some grass or over a log or over a stump. And when it does that, when it comes, the bass will come out and grab it. When they grab it, now we're talking about setting the hook. You feel a bite on that and set the hook, and then you get your fish in like that. But for the jig, this is how you would put it together. These two pieces, again, you tie it to your line, cast it out as far as you can. Now there are things that you want to target when you're fishing a jig. And when I say target, I mean there's things in the water like that you're trying to specifically throw this at. The other part I didn't mention, this has a weed guard. So you say, oh, what's a weed guard? The weed guard is meant to protect the hook. If you're going around like wood, rocks, things like that, the weed guard is to help you go over things without your hook getting hung up, so that your jig isn't then turned into a ornament, an underwater ornament that you can never see again. It's meant to keep it free from that. Does it work all the time? No, it's not 100%, but it will help you in cases where you pitch it over at a tree, goes over the tree. It wants to get hung up like that, but the weed guard, see, I'm trying to actually stick it in my hand, but the weed guard's deflecting it off my hand, so it won't get hung up. So that's what this is for. Very important part of your bait if you do fish a jig. Now this is like a flipping jig. There are all different types of jigs, and I'm going to be doing multiple videos on different types of jigs. This one in particular, should have said this in the beginning, but this is like a flipping jig. Flipping meaning I'm going to flip it out, let it hit the bottom, and then work it back to me after I do that. So throw it out as far as I can, or flip it out, let it work all the way back to me. Now, when I say there's things in the water that you want to target, so let's say this is a tree. If there's a tree in the water, bass love to hide in trees. They love to hide underneath the limbs, in between the limbs, at the front of the limbs, all that. So if this is a tree in the water, I want to throw my jig at the tree, right, a little bit past the tree, let it hit the ground, and then I want to bring it back up over the tree, because the bass will probably be sitting on this side, up here, over here, out here, down here, depending on how the tree's set up. You want to bring it over, let it hit the ground, bring it over, let it hit the ground. And if you feel anything that feels different, if you feel a limb and it's going over the limb and you all of a sudden don't feel anything anymore, 9 times out of 10, that means the fish has it. It went over the limb, the fish saw it, grabbed it, and he's swimming with it. Especially if you don't feel it, because you have a piece of lead or tungsten right here. There's no way you're not going to feel that. You're in contact with it, especially if you have a good rod and reel. You're in contact with it. You can feel it in your hand. You feel the head going up. If you don't feel it at any point, you got to set the hook, because that means you have a fish. And it's better to set the hook and it be a fish and you get it versus not set the hook, fish spits it, and you don't got the fish. Or if it's a tree, you hung up in a tree, it is what it is. This is one of those baits where if you're afraid to throw it, don't throw it. Okay, if you're afraid to put it into a tree, the base of a tree, or if you're afraid to throw it into the grass or throw it as far as you can because you don't know, or throw it at the rocks because you don't know. If you're afraid to throw it, don't throw this. Throw something else, because if you're not going to let it go where it needs to go, you're never going to catch any fish with this. You can cast it out all day long. If you're throwing at the middle of nothing, throwing out at the middle of this or over here somewhere, when there's literally a tree or a log or a stump sitting right in front of you, you don't throw it at that. Or if you're afraid to throw it at that, you're not going to catch anything. So this is one of those baits where you have to put it in places where you may not want to throw because you know you lost your other bait there. This is one that you have to put in that spot, because that's the only way you're going to get bites on this, is putting it in some difficult places. And you'll start to see it as you go out more and more times. You'll start to see it and you'll start to get some bites, and that feedback will let you know that you need to throw it here or there. As my hoodie says, and you guys can check this out in the deal, as my hoodie says right there, it says never give up, guys. So if you're casting, you're not getting the bites, at some point you will. You just gotta keep going. And then at some point you may have to look at what you're doing, your technique, how you're throwing it. Maybe you're working it too fast, you're turning your reel handle too fast. Maybe you're not making the accurate cast that you thought you were making because you're so used to throwing a spinnerbait. If you throw a spinnerbait, you just throw a spinnerbait down the bank, right? Burn it back, throw it, burn it back. With this, you're looking for specific things in the water, whether that be a tree, a stump, a dock. You're looking for specific things in the water, and you're trying to target and put your bait. Like, for example, if this is a tree, you want to put your bait right, I'm talking right beside this tree. You want to go out maybe past it, bring your bait right beside it, let it sit, shake it, hop it up, then start working it back to you, because you want to put this bait right beside pieces of cover to give yourself the best chance to get a bite. So, and then sometimes it can come down to you have a trailer that the legs are kicking too much. You might want something with a little less action. These legs on here really kick. They're fluttering like crazy. You may want something with a little less action. A lot of people have different trailers. Matter of fact, comment below what trailer that you use for your jigs that you've had success on. Maybe you can help someone else with your tips on a jig. The other part of it is going to be setting the hook on a jig. I'll make a whole nother video for that because it's going to be a little bit too long to go over in this one. There is a very specific way that you need to set the hook with a jig if you want to keep getting, if you want to land fish. You can set it any kind of way you want and hope for the best. But if you want to actually land fish, there's something that I learned by watching some of the Elite Series guys and some of these other guys that I know, some tips I had to pick up because I was losing jig fish left and right. I was hooking them, could never get them back to the boat until I changed this one thing. And that's something that I can share. I'll make a video specifically dedicated to that, and I'll actually show you guys clips of me doing exactly what I said. I've increased my percentage of how many I hook, but at the same time, I still lose jig fish because it is what it is. It's going to happen. Some fish, they bite it weird. Sometimes I don't get maybe as much power in there as I should. Sometimes it's the equipment. I had the wrong rod and reel because I had to use this because this wasn't available. So sometimes it's things, sometimes it's me, sometimes it's it's just the fish. You're just not, that fish ain't coming in the boat today. It's just one of these weird things. I think I lost one back to back. Same fish, bit it twice, could not get him in the boat. It was ridiculous. I don't know what was going on. Then I went back home and I looked at it and I looked at the stuff and I realized that I had put the reel that I use for jig fishing on the rod that I use for a different technique. And I was using that rod in a tournament and it did not have enough backbone to drive that hook. And that's why I didn't get the fish. I thought it was me, thought it was something I was doing, something I was messing up. I tried to give that fish everything I had. And if I had the normal setup I used, that fish is in the boat. This one, it looked exactly the same, but it was not the same. It was a different rod. And again, I tried my normal stuff and I could not get in the boat. So sometimes it does come down to your equipment. And that's why I say it'll be a whole nother video for that. So I'll show you guys the equipment I use that is really great for me for throwing a jig, and the actual technique that I use, because there is a very specific technique that I use for jig fishing. So if you guys enjoy this type of video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, share it to your friends. If they want to learn more about jig fishing, again, don't forget to get in the comments, tell us your jig trailer, That way we know what you're using. If you stayed to this point, thank you so much. Like I said, I want to keep these videos short and sweet when it comes to sharing the tips and techniques on that, because I have a pretty significant amount of baits to go through that I want to share with you guys on the ways that I fish them. And as always, as with anything when it comes to bass fishing, hear what someone's saying, make sure that you take away pieces from what they're saying, but always, always make sure it's you, because you do you when it comes down to it. When you find out what you is. If you're just starting, you may not know what you is, but if you've been doing it for a while, there are some things that you know that you learned throughout your fishing that helped you. So you have to be able to do that, because one thing I know, some people will say they use a medium heavy rod for their jigs, but that guy may set the hook like this is his last hook set that he'll ever make in his life, where somebody else sets the hook a little bit different. That can play a role. So when someone says, I throw a medium heavy 7 foot, that's great for that person. But how do you set the hook? That's what I say. That's what I mean by you. How do you set the hook? Do you set the hook with ferociousness like like your Hulk Hogan, He-Man or something? Like, is that how you set the hook? Or do you give them a good wind up and lean into it? You got back problems, you got neck, like nobody really knows how you are when it comes to what you do. So that part you got to tailor to yourself. But thank you guys for tuning in. Stay tuned for that next video. The next one's going to be more tips and techniques, and then I will drop a video on how I set up things for jig fishing, and I'll probably do the same thing for other techniques as well. So thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate you guys are awesome, my Bass and Furious friends. I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.